What's up, you radical human? Today, I spoke to Chad "Money" Mendes. If you're an MMA fan, that name will need no introduction. So I talked to Chad about fighting, hunting, fatherhood, business, what it was like to step in the octagon with Conor McGregor and almost beat him, his entry into bare knuckle boxing, and the folklore fight now with Eddie Alvarez, which was just a barn burner. His incredible healing story from a lifelong battle with psoriasis to effectively putting that completely into remission with a nose-to-tail animal-based diet. His craziest hunting story, how he got the nickname Chad "Money" Mendes, and so much more. Chad is the definition of a humble savage. Inspiring, uplifting, human, honest. I think it's a really great chat, and I think you're going to love this one. So let's get into it with Chad Mendes. Chad Mendes, welcome to the show, my friend. You've traversed a lot of life, dude, from fighting at the highest levels, MMA, UFC, bare knuckle, wrestling, hunting, now in dad life. So before we kind of unpack all of that story, I just want to know from your perspective, what's the latest and greatest in Chad's world? What are you sinking your teeth into most these days?
Man, in all honesty, I thought I was retired from mixed martial arts and had zero plan of coming back to that world. I did the bare knuckle boxing the last 2 years. Well, I guess it would have been the last 3 years, but hung up the no gloves there. Figured after that last fight I was done and was just jumping back into the business world and just got a huge offer. There's a new fight organization that just launched called the Global Fight League, which is something that I didn't think I would see in my fight lifetime. And I absolutely love what they stand for and what they're doing for the fighters. And so they threw a big offer at me. I just signed the contract, and I've been training the last 2 months, and I'm fighting again May 12th. So it's a great organization, man. They're doing really big base pay for fighters, which is something UFC doesn't do. They're doing a 50-50 rev share split with all of us. So
Damn.
any pay-per-view buys, ticket sales, any big sponsors they get in for the organization, they split that 50-50 with the fighters. And then they're also funding on top of whatever we make per fight. They do an 8% on top of that for our retirement. And then also family medical benefits. I think they do another 2 or 4% on top of whatever you make for that. So, man, I never thought that I'd see anything like that in my fight lifetime. I'm still in my 30s, right at the end of it. I'm 39, and so this offer came about, and me and my wife sat down and really looked at everything and thought about it. And I just feel like it's too big of an opportunity to pass up while I'm still in that window. So we signed the contract. I've been busting my butt, and like I said, I'll be fighting May 12th.
Heck yeah, man. I've seen some of the clips. You look ready to go. Do you have an opponent? Is there any opponent lined up yet?
I do have one. They haven't announced it, so I don't know if I should say anything yet. But
Okay.
it's one. So the way that they did this also is they drafted a bunch of big UFC names. They drafted us all to 6 different teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to kind of structure this like the NFL, like they did a big draft, put us on teams. I think they're going to be doing some like multiple team fights over multiple days. So like say it's a Sunday and a Monday, like kind of like Sunday night, Monday night football. They're doing a big card on Sunday, big card on Monday. And they're just, I guess we'll just go back to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet, but yes, I'm fighting somebody on the Brazil team. There's a Sao Paulo Brazil team.
Heck
I
yeah.
know who it is, but yeah, I've watched a ton of film on them, feel very confident and comfortable with it. This part of my camp, and I'm excited to get in there and whoop some butt. But
Yeah, that's exciting, man. You've been in killer's row in the UFC, like back in the almost what feels like the golden days of the UFC now, the nostalgia. You fought Conor McGregor, you fought Alexander Volkanovski. Like, you've been in there with the best around the sport at a high level. But you mentioned something there that I think is, for people that have watched the sport, like I'm an outsider watching the sport, and I've realized that there's this undercurrent to an amazing sport and an amazing organization, which is the UFC. And the dark side of that sometimes is the pay was not there. The support for the fighters was not there. This seems like you said, a really good opportunity. I love that, the family health benefits, the thinking about the long-term health of retirement for the fighter. Because you must think about these, and I'm sure these are the conversations with your wife, that every time you step into that ring or octagon, you're leaving a little bit of yourself in there, right? You're risking it all. So what's some of the things now, like being a vet, that is different about this offer versus like what you wish something like the UFC would be doing, what you wish some of the bigger organizations in MMA would be doing? Are things changing from your perspective? I'm sure you're still around the sport. Are things moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and honestly, from the pay from when I left the UFC to what a lot of these guys are getting now, it's obviously gotten better, and I think it's going to continue to get better. It's just moving at such a slow pace compared to other pro sports, like, and I understand a business is a business. Like I run multiple small businesses, obviously understand that there's things that have to be done in order to make money and to grow. But I think we're kind of past that with the UFC now. I feel like
Yeah.
there's the ability to do more for the fighters, but it's a multi-billion dollar company choosing to keep that, and like I said, the pay is getting better, but it's nowhere near what this organization is offering the fighters. Now we'll see if it lasts. My concern is a brand new company like this coming in and offering this much pay and rev share splits and all that. Is it something that can take off and last? I really do hope so because, like I said, I really do like what it stands for the fighters. I like how they are scheduling and structuring things, and would love to see this take off and basically be the new standard for fighter compensation and how fighters are looked at when they get in there and fight. So, yeah, man, I definitely think it's moving in the right direction,
Yeah.
but again, I just feel like it's still far behind with all that stuff. So we'll see
Mm.
if this helps.
Yeah, I'm sure one of the keys to success and hoping it does stick around is bringing on the right people that ultimately put
Yeah.
on exciting fights. And if there's anything that you can say about your career, it's been exciting. It's been really exciting as a fan to watch. Like the bare knuckle fight
Okay.
with Eddie Alvarez, the championship fight on short notice with Conor McGregor. Like when you think back, reminisce a little bit as you draw to the twilight of your career and the last fight or the last few fights, whatever it may be. What are some of the highlights of your career so far? What are some of the biggest? Like you look back on that with a lot of smiles.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I think one of my biggest like pivotal fights in my career was against a good buddy of mine, which sucks, but Clay Guida.
Mm,
Clay was a legend in the sport. He had been a 55er his entire career, fought and beat some of the biggest names in the sport, and decided to come down to featherweight when I was like right there making my way to the top of the weight class. And he came down. It was the biggest fight name that I'd ever competed against, but it was also shitty because it was a good buddy of mine. Like he's a big outdoorsman, loves fishing.
yeah.
I'm obviously a big hunter and love fishing also. And I mean, we were always texting each other. Like he'd catch a 8 pound, 10 pound bass and be sending me photos of it. If I got a big buck, I'd be sending him photos of it. And just a great guy. And went out there. I was the first person to ever knock him out, and
Mm,
it was bittersweet because obviously that was a big feat for me. It was a big stepping stone in my career, but it also sucked because I had a buddy who obviously I care about, but you got to go out there and do what you got to do
yeah.
to make what you've trained for happen. So I think that was probably one of the bigger fights in my career in my mind. Um, I think the best I've ever felt and probably most on point would be my second fight against Jose Aldo. I mean, that was a fight that I envisioned winning and basically going out there and competing at the highest level for a really long time. He knocked me out the first fight. It was a kind of a crazy knee just thrown
Yeah.
and landed perfectly. And, that kind of haunted me. And I knew I would be back in there with him eventually. There were some years in between. I feel like I was a baby that first time I fought him. I think I only had a few fights in the UFC. I was still super young. I think I was still in my 20s. I mean, I don't even know. But, stepping in there, I definitely wasn't at the right point in my career to
Mm,
fight against Jose Aldo for a UFC title, but I was on a win streak, and that's what they thought was next. So I jumped in there. But you know, maturing more, obviously growing my all-around MMA game from the first fight to that second fight. I got in there and I fought. with everything I absolutely had. That was the best Chad Mendes right there.
Mm,
And Aldo was just better. You know, the dude's a stud. And everyone asks me, like, oh, who's your hardest opponent? Everyone always just automatically assumes Conor because it's Conor McGregor. But man, in all honesty, Conor would have been an easy fight if I was in shape. You know, Aldo is way more athletic, explosive, strong, has great jiu-jitsu and unbelievable striking. Where Conor's game at that point was striking. You know, when I would take him down, he was the type of guy that made an easy fight for a guy like me, where he would just hold
right.
on. You know, and I could sit there and elbow, I could take my time, I could rest. But man, I just fought Aldo, was taking time out of the gym for a long time because that was the hardest fight I'd ever gone
Hmm.
through. I mean, I pissed blood that night when I got back to the hotel. Like my legs, my feet, my hands, my whole body from head to toe was in pain for like 2 months after that fight.
Dude.
So, you know, I wasn't in the gym training a ton. And I get a call from my managers like, hey, Aldo's out. We need you to step in. I'm 25 pounds over. It's 10 days notice. And so they're like, you think you can make weight? And I'm like, dude, how am I going to pass this up? It's for a title. Like, it's Conor. Yeah, let's do it. So just went to work, starving, dehydrating, made the weight, got in there. And really, like I said, would have been an easy fight being able to do that for 5 rounds. But I just didn't have the gas tank, man, which sucks. But it's one of those things I wish I could redo, but I don't think it would ever happen.
Yeah.
But it is, man. I gotta look at that fight and find the positives in it. Like it helped grow my brand tremendously. You know, my brand exploded after that. I feel like I went in there and did the best that I could on such a short amount of time. But you know, looking back on it and what I'm doing now outside of the octagon, even though I'm still fighting, but uh, it's helped a ton with everything. All my other businesses, you know, which, you know, as much as I want to be pissed at Conor. Like it helped.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, the red panty night, that's what people were
Yeah, oh
getting in the Conor
yeah.
McGregor days, and
Uh-huh.
it's crazy to watch because like you said, I think everybody that watched that fight has this open loop in the mind of Chad Mendes on a full camp takes that fight and takes that belt, and then the what ifs and where's your reign and all of that stuff. But like you said, I think that's a really healthy and positive mindset that you got there. There's no point beating the dead horse. You didn't. You still put up a hell of a fight. You was whooping his ass for almost 2 full rounds there before. Like you come essentially off the couch on 10 days notice and cut 25 pounds. And I think you did yourself proud, man. But kind of crazy to think about what could have been. But two of the names you mentioned there, Aldo and Conor, they have like this aura about them, right? Like, what's it like standing across the octagon from people that just carry like larger than life personalities? Is that a thing that's going through your mind? Do you feel the pressure of the eyeballs, the Conor McGregor fight just being the biggest fight, the money fight, the eyeballs? Is that different to fights that when you was coming up, or did you try and stay that it was all the same for you and you just had a job to do? Did it get to you?
No, I mean, I think every fight in the UFC, I would pretty much feel the same. Like it's the biggest platform, you know, you got millions of eyeballs watching you every single time, and everybody that makes it to the UFC is good,
Yeah.
you know. So obviously a guy like Aldo or, you know, Clay Guida or Connor or, you know, any of these big name guys that you get in there and fight, you in my mind I prepare a little bit differently mentally going into that. I mean, you know, this is somebody that's been to war, that has the background that I have, like my wrestling background. If there was a belt system, I'd be a black belt. You know, they're same thing in their world. And you know, you got these top level guys that have spent their entire lives training a specific thing or certain things, and it's like what's going to be the bigger like have the better outcome when you get in there and fight. You know, like is the wrestling going to be able to overtake? Is the
Mm-hmm.
mental side of being able to push through pain and grit and push the pace, is that going to overtake somebody's technique and explosiveness or power, whatever it may be? You know, and so you got to really game plan mentally for each individual fighter. You know, this is his strengths, this is his weakness or weaknesses, you know, and then you just got to kind of go in there and know that. And then once you're staring at him across the cage, obviously all that stuff and all that training and preparation, both mentally, physically, is already done.
Yeah.
You just have fun. You look at them, it's like it's go time, man. It's time to put it's time to take the test. You just studied,
Dude.
for weeks or months, and that test is sitting right in front of you. You gonna crush it or you gonna fold? So
It's
yeah.
huge, man. I'm getting goosebumps as you're saying that because I competed in mixed martial arts on a super small level. My biggest fight was for like a rinky-dink amateur UK title. I think there was probably like 500 people in this sports hall, but like half of them were my crowd, half were the other person's crowd. Like I was the underdog, and it just like exact everything you just said is like, yeah. And now I'm
Oh
trying to
yeah.
think about, okay, now times that by a million and put it all on the line and have it be Conor McGregor. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude. Like just
Yeah, I
wild
get
stories, man.
Yeah, and I guess I still get nervous I got nervous before every single fight. Like
Yeah.
standing there, that cage closes. It's like you have nerves, but I think that's good. Like I think a certain amount of nerves keeps you aware, keeps your
Yes.
reactions fast and on point. Uh, it's that fight or flight, and you have no choice but to fight
That's right.
unless you just immediately give up, which nobody really ever does. So yeah, it's crazy, dude. Those nerves, like people ask all the time, like, what is it like walking out for a big UFC fight or a big fight, and then standing in there and looking at your opponent for 3 to 5 minutes before the fight actually
Mm-hmm.
starts? Crazy, man. I don't think there's anything on earth that I've ever experienced that compares.
Yeah.
You know, I relate a lot of stuff to hunting and fishing, more hunting than anything as far as the preparation and game planning and stuff like that and being dedicated and disciplined, but there's never the same feeling of that, because you don't think about it a ton, but there's always the back of your head, like you could get hurt, like
Yeah.
there's a possibility, and things could be different after this, and you try not to think about that too much, but it's there.
Yeah.
You just got to push through that and know that, again, it's that fight or flight, and it's time to fight, baby. got a guy right there that's going to try to kill me, and I'm going to try to kill him, and the ref's going to stop it before it happens. So, uh, yeah, it's a crazy feeling.
It is. It's like so. I feel like it's so in like deeply in our bones as men too. It's kind of how we evolved. It's just in the nature of us. And what's really interesting, especially as I speak to fighters at different stages of their career, is like how do you acknowledge that like the savage part of you, the animal, the hunter, the one that wants to go in and kill or be killed, and then switch modes and go to girl dad mode and be present and soft and loving and nurturing. Like what? How do you do that? Is it easy for you? Is it hard sometimes to turn it off? Like what's the balance like?
Yeah, I mean, at times it can be difficult. I kind of struggle with this myself, like as far as questioning, like what's right and what's wrong. Like, do I have this savage inside me, this killer that wants to compete and be the best at everything, anything and everything. And, if that means me punching a dude's face in, that's what it means. But then, like, you have that soft side of you also that is caring, and I squeeze and hug and kiss my little girls and play with them and let them put makeup on me. And kind of, it's one of those things like, I almost sometimes feel guilty for being that savage,
Mm,
at times, and knowing that that's there. Like, am I faking? Am I being a fake person? It's something I kind of struggle with a little bit. But I think I got to just treat it like it's work, like it's a business.
yeah.
This is, I know there's people that work Wall Street or different other jobs where they have a family at home and they get in there and it's kill or be killed, and they are rough, tough, cussing and going nuts. But then when they come home, it's like a decompress, and they're not like that anymore. So I know there's people doing the same thing that are not necessarily stepping in a cage and fighting another human being to the death.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a weird thing for sure.
No doubt, man.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, I feel like we gotta just like wear different onesies and be able to try and figure it
yeah,
out. But like you said, I think you said your oldest kid is around 6, right? So you're also just learning. That's one of the things I've learned about becoming a parent is you can read books, you can get advice from people, but there's no like perfect way of doing it. You're literally just winging it. You're completely winging it, and you're transitioning from a completely different phase of life, and it changes some stuff. So like, how do you just switch gears, and you got to find your way, and I'm sure you'll continue to do that. And you mentioned like how
absolutely.
each fight would have a different kind of mindset. I'm curious like how the mindset shifted from UFC, MMA, which has the aspects of wrestling, which is a huge part of your background, to transitioning and having the bare knuckle? Like, did that feel like it upped the ante in any way? Did it up the stakes? Like the fight with Eddie Alvarez is folklore at this point. Anybody that watches that is just like, hell yeah, that's a man's fight right there. But it's somewhat limited in a way, right? Because it's just the hands now, so there's no kicks coming in. So what was it like to transition to bare knuckle? How did you have to adjust to that?
Yeah, I ended up actually there at the end liking it more than MMA. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, obviously I was a wrestler my whole life. That's my bread and butter, but boxing was always something that really interested me. Even through my UFC career, I'd say wrestling and boxing were my two biggest attributes. Like those are the things I trained the most and I enjoyed the most. Um, having speed, athletic abilities to close the distance quick, and power. It was awesome going out there. You train a whole camp and you go out there and knock somebody out in 30 seconds. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, dude, I could get used to this. And so when that would happen and I figured out that I was, pretty good at doing that, like why not train that more and get super comfortable with this and just keep doing that. And making the transition from MMA to that, there was actually a good gap. I retired in 18 and didn't do any type of training from December of 2018 with my fight with Volk to when was that? 22,
Wow.
I believe, is when I fought that first bare knuckle. And so I didn't really do anything. I mean, obviously I'm still working out. I'm doing cardio and weight training and hunting, hiking, packing, like all that stuff. But, as far as like mixed martial arts training, I didn't do any of it. And so getting back into it, I was like, man, I gotta start early. So obviously jumped back in like a year before I actually fought because my fight kept getting bumped back
Mm-hmm.
also. But um, it took me a little bit because obviously your fight stance in MMA has got to be completely different than just a straight boxing fight stance. But it took a few weeks, a couple months, and felt pretty damn comfortable just standing up and boxing. I enjoyed it, man. You got one thing to focus on. You got
Yeah.
hands in front of and footwork. And it's like 2 minute rounds also versus 5 minute rounds. So the rounds would fly by. So it's like you felt like you could just go balls to the wall the whole
Yeah.
time, and then it would be over. And so I don't know. It was great. I enjoyed training for it. Obviously, getting punched bare knuckle is a little bit different. The concussion, I don't think's the same. I mean, you got an MMA glove; it's got maybe a quarter inch of leather over the knuckles.
Uh-huh.
So, the concussion of it didn't feel different. It's just the firmness, the hardness of that knuckle. Like getting popped with a jab would split you
Yeah.
open. And it's not like something that would rock you, but you're like, shit, I got cut. That was like I feel like it barely hit me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was something you'd have to focus on and worry about. But I mean, you saw mine and Eddie's faces after were just swollen eyes shut, cuts, and but yeah, man, it was. I think all in all, overall, from MMA to the bare knuckle, I enjoyed I enjoyed the bare knuckle
Yeah.
probably more than MMA. But again, I feel like I would like it if you could just throw some gloves on. I'd like it the most.
Yeah.
Get the knuckle part of it out of there. But
It checks out, man,
yeah.
because when I see your clips these days and you're cracking the pads, like you definitely have dynamite in your hands, and I can imagine it would feel pretty good to land one of those bombs. I always
Yeah.
laugh because I watch some of your clips that you put on, and you're just hitting these pads. Like, I go into the comments and people are like, "This is sped up," and I'm like, "No, it's not sped up. That's just how fast this guy is. It's pretty wild."
Uh,
How
thanks. Yeah.
what's your background? Like, how did you get into obviously wrestling? You mentioned that. How did you transition into MMA?
So I started wrestling at the age of 5 years old. My dad got me into it. I wrestled every single year of my life from five up through college. I never took a year off and graduated. And so through my college days, Uriah Faber was at UC Davis. He wrestled there. And in fact, right out of high school, I went and did a recruit trip out to Davis, and him and some of the other guys were really trying to get me to go there. But I ended up choosing Cal Poly on the central coast of California, and wrestled there. But my coach at Cal Poly would put on a 6 week long wrestling camp up in Tahoe every year. And he would bring Uriah and some of the other UC Davis wrestlers there to help us with, just teaching and doing stuff like that, camp counselors. And obviously all of our team was there from Cal Poly also. Well, my freshman year, Uriah was there, and I think he'd had like 3 or 4 fights already. Like it was right at the beginning of his career, and he had a fight in a few weeks, but still went out there just to make some money and be a part of the camp and stuff. And he's like, man, I got to train, but he kept wrestling with all the other guys, and he was pretty spastic, and he was hurting people, and nobody wanted to train with them. So I was like, dude, I'll work out with you. So we grappled for like an hour or more, and he submitted me a ton, and I didn't know anything about jujitsu, but he's like, dude, I think you'd be really good at this if you want to give it a shot. Like, I have a extra room in my house. You can just stay there until you get a few fights and can get your own place. So we kept in touch the rest of my college career. And the day I graduated, put all my stuff that next day in a U-Haul and moved up to Sacramento
Boom.
and moved into his spare bedroom and jumped right into pro practice with the Team Alpha Male crew. These guys were animals, and I trained for 3 months, had my first pro fight, submitted the dude in the first round, and I was just like, thought I was rich. I made like $2,000. I was like right out of college.
Let's go.
This is great. And I told myself, like, if I'm good at this, I'll stick with it for a while, but if I'm not, I'll just go get a job. And after that first fight, I'm like, dude, I could get used to this. So ended up competing, continuing. I fought like 2 or 3 more times, moved out, got my own place. And then the rest is history, man. I think I
Yeah.
fought 5 times in that smaller show before Zuffa picked me up into the WEC and signed with the WEC, fought there, and then merged the two into the UFC and fought there the rest of my career.
Boom. Team Alpha Male, you mentioned it there, like Uriah heading that up, but it became just like the spot for the featherweight through maybe welterweight, right? Like the lower weight classes a little bit, but it was just pumping out talent, future world champions, prospects, left, right, and center. What's it like being on the inside of that though? It must, I mean, Team Alpha Male. There's a lot of alphas there. There's a lot of people competing to be the best. What's it like to have that level of camaraderie and competition combined into one melting spot in this cultural moment?
I mean, I thought it was awesome. I've obviously been on a lot of wrestling teams throughout my life. That was the only fight team that I've ever been on. But throughout my career, I would jump around and do a week here, a week there, like some other buddies at different gyms and stuff. I mean, I feel like our camaraderie, our team was more of like a family, where a lot of guys didn't treat it that way. Obviously, everybody pretty much that came to Team Alpha Male had that wrestling background. And the wrestling community is a pretty small community. And so everybody knew everybody before coming in there and were either already buddies or became really close friends. So, it was awesome. Super high level athletes,
Yeah.
he's competing. A lot of the times it's like you don't realize the level that you're competing at until you go to somebody else's gym and then just mop everybody up, and it doesn't feel like anywhere close to it. And you're like, damn, I kind of forget like where our team's level is at.
Yeah.
And it's a good eye opener and a big boost of confidence when you would go and do that. But yeah, man, it was awesome. I'm beyond thankful for Uriah to take me under his wing, and a lot of us, all of us at Team Alpha Male. I mean, he's the one that created that team, that gym, and just built it to where it's at now, and helped us all get to the point where we are in our career. So,
Heck yeah.
yeah, man, it was super cool. Such a big time in my life. It feels like it's so far away already. Like it was such a long time ago, but man, it's such a big part of
How'd you get the nickname Money? Chad Money Mendes. Where'd that come from?
it. So my very first practice, so I told you I moved up there and I unloaded all my stuff that day after I graduated in Faber's house. And then that next day is when I jumped right into pro practice. And that first day just happened to be pro MMA sparring. And it's like, I've never done that before. Obviously wrestling background. Before I went to left Cal Poly, I was like trying to do a little bit of mitt work with a couple buddies there at Liddell's gym and stuff. But I mean, really didn't know what I was doing. And so these guys put this headgear on me, these big old 16-ounce gloves and shin guards. I'm just like, I feel like an idiot, and so I jump in, and these guys are all trying to take my head off. And I mean, really, all I knew how to do was blast double leg people. So anybody that would get close to me and start swinging, I would just blast them off their feet. And I went through the whole practice. And after practice, there was a couple places right downtown Sacramento we'd always go to for breakfast or lunch. And so the whole team was, showered. We're walking down there, and everyone's like, dude, like, Chad, your shot is money. Like that
Nice.
takedown is money. And Faber's like, dude, I got your nickname, the money shot. And I'm like, dude, no, like you can't call me money shot. He's like, nope, it's sticking. And so the whole team started calling me Money Shot Mendes. And obviously you guys know what a money shot is. And so that was actually my nickname for my first like 4 fights. And they would even announce it and everything. I'm like, yeah, dang it.
That's hilarious.
And I signed a big deal with Pepsi, and they're like, "Yeah, no, you can't have that nickname. This is a family company." Like, and so they dropped the shot, and it just became Money, Chad Money Mendez.
Dude, that's so good. I'm so glad
It's,
I asked that. I had no idea. Money shot. That's hilarious.
uh,
I have to ask this because you've had you had a pretty crazy, like I've seen your post where you had crazy psoriasis on your legs. And I
yeah,
think this is kind of like how the heart and soil stuff came into your awareness as well when you started to think about like the power of diet potentially. I'm curious, firstly, I want you to tell that story and what was going on. And did that ever impact your fight career as well or your training career?
yeah. So I mean, honestly, as long as I can remember, probably 4 years old, 3, 4 years old, I remember getting plaque psoriasis on my shin, one shin, and it started off, like the size of a silver dollar. And I didn't know what it was. Like being a wrestler, I just thought it was ringworm, and
Mm,
I was always putting ringworm medicine on it, but it would never go away. And just, over my life started getting bigger and bigger, and then it jumped over to my other shin, and then started growing bigger and bigger. Um, and shoot, by the time I was probably 8, I had it from ankle to knee on both shins. And then it started spreading like through high school and college. I started getting it all over my scalp, my ears, little spots here and there all through my body. And then it just started getting worse and worse and worse. And I going to dermatologists, I think I went to my lifetime probably 4 or 5 different ones. And every single one of them would tell me that diet has nothing to do with plaque psoriasis. And there's nothing, because I would specifically ask, like, are there things that I should stay away from in my diet that might, because I know, like I knew there were certain things that I would eat that would immediately start making it itch. And in my
mm,
mind, I'm like, that's probably like aggravating it, I would imagine. I don't know if that's making it grow more, but it's definitely making it itch more. So, but every time they would almost get like irritated that I even asked that and would say, nope, like diet has nothing to do. There's no scientific evidence that shows diet has anything to do with it. But we can prescribe you a shot, and they're really expensive, and they're really hard on your liver and your all your organs, and you have to do it like monthly. Or we could give you this cream or these pills, and it's always trying to prescribe me something, and I'm like, I don't want to have to take anything for the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to have to do that for something that's on my skin that is going to destroy my liver or something. Like, I'll just deal with the skin thing. So they're always like, okay. And through my fight career, I mean, it started getting really bad. Like, I would more feel bad for my partners than anything. I would always have to wear like leggings because, if you're wrestling, a guy's hanging onto your leg
right.
and there's like psoriasis rubbing all over his face, I would just feel so bad. But man, it would get pretty bad, like so bad that it would start bleeding. Like I would scratch it till it was bleeding down my leg, and same thing on my arms, elbows, and stuff like that. And and then you'd get your sweat, the salt in it, and it would just be on fire. And so it definitely wasn't anything debilitating, but it wasn't comfortable by any
Right.
means.
Right.
Very annoying. And oh man, it was probably 5 years ago. Um, it got to the worst point in my life that I'd ever had it. And I've posted pictures of this stuff. Now, those are kind of the before and afters that I've posted. But I started hearing Dr. Paul Saladino and Dr. Sean Baker. And I saw them on Rogan's podcast. I know Rogan has, I think, vitiligo,
Yeah.
where autoimmune, where it attacks the pigment in your skin. And I had a buddy, Scott Jorgensen, that actually has that same thing, and
Yep.
his entire body is now white. But I started to hear more and more about these diets that could help it. But in my mind, I was like, I can't cut out carbs, all carbs, because I'm an explosive athlete. Like I need glycogen stores, I need this. So I never put too much into it. And then I always just ate oatmeal. Like, I was always taught my whole life, like, oatmeal is great. It's a great carbohydrate source. Like, it's healthy for you. And I think oatmeal, out of all the things that I ate, irritated it and made it the worst.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and I didn't know that until I completely cut it out. But, I got to the point where I retired, was done in 2018, and my buddy's wife had Crohn's disease. And he came to me, he's like, dude, she's been on this. She went strict carnivore and it is completely gone.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I think you really should try this for your psoriasis. And this was the point in my life where it was like the worst. And I'm just like, coming back from hunts where my sleep's not consistent,
Yeah.
eating crappy food, just running myself into the ground, and it was just getting super inflamed and dry and flaky and itchy. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try this. I'll try it for a month. I'm gonna try strict carnivore and just see what happens. If there's any type of improvement, then I'll look into doing this more. But if not, I'm just gonna go back to doing what I normally do. And within like a week, it was already night and day different. And I just went meat, eggs, dairy, and seafood. Like, no carbohydrates at all, other than a little bit in the dairy. Um, and for me, it was more just like thinking, okay, elimination. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to like cut out and see if this is like a reset and see if it helps. But like I said, within a week, it was already night and day better. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. 3 weeks, it was like really noticeable. And by like a month or two, it was like almost gone.
Wow.
And so I just kept doing that. I did carnivore, I think, for 4 months strict. And then after the 4 months, it was pretty much gone. And I just slowly started adding in fruits again, honey, um, obviously the raw dairy. That
Mm-hmm.
was kind of something at that point started to become more readily available. Like, it wasn't really a thing that we could find,
Yeah.
5 years ago. I feel like it was hard to find. So now switching everything over to raw as much as I can. Um, I'll use maple syrup, real maple syrup from time to time to sweeten things. But yeah, cutting out all seed oils, most grains. Like, even right now, I'll still add in every once in a while some organic white rice, and I'll even do some organic potatoes from time to time. But for the most part, it's all fruit and honey for my carbs. But cutting out seed oils, any processed sugars, and then most grains has, I mean, my psoriasis is, I'd say 99% gone. Like, I'll get a little bit
Mm-hmm.
still like right behind my ears, which I notice pops up if my sleep more
Yeah.
at this point. It's just if I don't get 8 hours of sleep for multiple days in a row, that's when I start seeing it getting a little inflamed right behind my ears. But other
Yeah.
than that, like, it's gone on my entire body. Like, it was really bad, And so for me, I'm one of those things that I put myself into that test realm where it's like, hey, I'll
Yeah.
be the guinea pig when I don't have to rely on competing at the top at a high level. So if I feel like crap, I'm not too worried about it, but I'll be the test dummy here. Obviously, it works. Like, I have other buddies with autoimmune diseases, and I've basically shared with them any knowledge that I've learned over the last 5 years and try to help and tell them like what to do. And I've seen so many improvements by doing that. It's crazy to think that dermatologists or some of these doctors are taught that diet has nothing to do with any of these,
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
I just don't understand it. But I mean, I'll straight up tell you, like, I know that's a lie because I've
Yep.
done it. I can show you before and after and what it looked like and what I've done, and also how I feel like. So yeah, man, it's a pretty crazy story. And so going into the heart and soil side of it, obviously following Paul and seeing him grow these brands, and I truly believe that Paul is the type of guy that is trying to grow the health of America. It's not, I don't think this is a guy that's just like super selfish and just wants all the money in the world. Like, I don't see that in him. I know he's making money on these, but he's trying to create brands and products that should be things that we're eating and
Right.
consuming, have a benefit and a purpose. And it's opening the eyes of all of us in America and realizing what we are eating and what we are doing on the daily is completely poisoning us. And there's so many things that we have been taught to be normal and healthy. Like I think back to my college days and like I took nutrition, but my major was kinesiology. And my nutrition classes, like I specifically remember the teachers telling us, don't eat butter. Animal fats are bad for you. Eat the margarine. You want to eat these oils are heart healthy. I specifically remember them
Yep.
saying that. And it's
Yep.
like now we're learning that that's all BS, And so I really look up to Paul. I love what he stands for and what he's doing. And my family is now on that lifestyle and we'll never go back. I have tons of people in our circle now whose families are on that train and are never going back. And it's like, it's pretty cool to see this movement that he's created. And like I said, I truly believe that he's doing this for the good.
Yep.
And obviously, there's physical evidence, me being part of that evidence. Other buddies of mine, my buddy's wife who came off of it, just sticking to a diet. There's different buddies of mine that have had different autoimmune diseases or other things that have been completely cured and gone because of diet change. It's like, how can we overlook this and how can we not think that this is something that is real and believe all the other stuff? Like there's physical proof right in front of you these days. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I can go on about this forever. So
Dude, it's amazing. And like we've got a 110 almost episodes of the podcast right now, and probably 90% of them wouldn't be possible unless somebody like you had broken all the rules and reversed their health and are now taking positions that are like, yeah, actually, the world we live in, the way in which we live in, the food that we're eating is highly sick, highly poisoned, and by breaking all the rules, you can actually become healthier. And it also is encapsulated in this cultural moment of, make America healthy again, and people having these stories, because when you have a story like that, and this one landed close to home for me because I watched my mom the entirety of my childhood grow up with crippling psoriasis to the point where she like wouldn't want to go out and be seen. It was really bad all over her arms. And now she's the same, man. It's gone. It's gone through dietary and lifestyle changes. She had the same story. This one was just in the UK. No, diet doesn't do anything. Here's a cream, here's a lotion, here's a potion. It's wild, man. So I just love seeing stories like that and people with platforms that can share that story, because who knows who needs to hear that and is like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I should give this thing a try as well. And the ripple effect is massive. And like you said, with the nose to tail slant that we're really trying to focus on with Heart and Soil, getting people eating these important lost nutrients that we've just thrown away because like, ooh, gross. I'm curious how you look at the nose to tail aspect of nutrition, particularly through the lens of hunting, because you're an avid hunter. So I'm curious how like hunting has changed your perspective on not only respect to animals and where food comes from, but the importance of eating nose to tail and using all parts of the animal.
yeah, absolutely, dude. So hunting has been a huge part of my life since I was a little kid. I remember following my dad around in the woods when I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old, and just watching him hunt and kind of learning and seeing what he would do. I was able to harvest my very first deer when I was like 12 or 13 with the bow. And it was a big experience for me. It was something that was both extremely emotional. Like I actually cried a little bit
Mm-hmm.
watching it die. It's something that I don't ever want to feel excited to take something's life, but at the same time, it's like I'm excited because I just did what I set out to do. I trained with my weapon. I became proficient. I arrowed this deer and it died, quickly right in front of me. And now I have an amazing amount of high quality protein that I can live off of for the
Mm-hmm.
next year, and it was definitely an emotional thing that I'll never forget. But that was kind of the coming to my first kill, and obviously there's been quite a few since then in my lifetime, and it never gets easier. Every
Mm.
time I watch an animal die, and you practice. I practice almost daily to try to be as proficient with my weapon as I can because you don't want to see suffering. You don't want to see any of that stuff go down. Obviously, it's not always perfect. Life and death is not perfect. We know that. But, my job as a hunter is to get out there and make sure that I do my best to make that a quick and clean kill. But now I have, like I said, amazing high quality protein for me, my family, and I share a ton of it with a lot of my
Yeah.
friends that don't have the means or the ability to get out and hunt as much as I do, thankfully. And so to me, it means a lot, man. That's like being able to give a family of like a friend of mine, their family, like 100 pounds of venison or something
Huge.
like that. Dude, so many people are so thankful about that. And obviously they know, they understand the health benefits and how clean it is. And, it's never been touched by another human being
Mm-hmm.
outside of whoever might have helped me process it or something. Um, but also going back to the nose to tail, like for me, understanding the benefits of vitamins and nutrients and how they're not all created equal. There's stuff that's created in the lab, the synthetic vitamins, the synthetic nutrient like stuff. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have. I know I've taken some of the men's vitamins, they're through
Yeah.
college. Like
Yeah.
I used to take one a day or something. And within an hour, I'd go pee and it's like rainbow
Yeah.
colored.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? And so obviously later finding out like my body's not absorbing all that. Like I'm wasting my money and I'm peeing it all into the toilet. Why is that? It's not bioavailable for my body. It's not something my body recognizes as natural and wants to absorb and use. So the difference between nose to tail is that those vitamins and nutrients are bioavailable for our body to absorb and use. And that's why you see people that will take a one a day and they're like, man, I still feel crappy. Like I'm not, and they switch over to the Heart and Soil or whatever nose to tail brand of beef organs. And they, within like a week or two, already notice the energy difference, the mental
Yeah.
clarity, like just overall well-being, like feeling good. It's like, why? Because I'm getting the nutrients that my body needs that I haven't maybe been getting in my diet, whether you're just busy, not doing what you need to
Right.
do as far as staying on top of the diet, or we all live crazy lives. Like it's nonstop from wake up to go to bed, especially when you have kids. You're not always the best on staying on top of what you need to eat when. This is the stuff that fills in those gaps, and I have a lot of people that see me post about my psoriasis and then the Heart and Soil and get kind of confused, like, hey, if I take this, does it make my psoriasis go away? And it's like, no, it's not. Don't look at it like that. This is your way of filling in the gaps for your vitamins, your nutrients that you're lacking, your body's lacking. It's looking for these things, it needs it, and this is what's going to give you that gap fill. And so I try to explain that to people, and there's different, no, obviously nose to tail supplements that do different things throughout your
Yeah.
body. But man, a lot of the times when I like say I kill an elk, like I'll keep the heart, the liver, and a lot of times I'll grind that into a lot of the ground meat and do like kind of an ancestral blend
Awesome.
where, it's in there. I absolutely love heart. Like I'll grill up heart and eat it. It's one of my favorite things. Liver is still tough for me to eat.
Yeah.
And I have not done the raw liver yet. Um, but I've eaten cooked liver and like jerky liver, and I cannot do it. So me personally, I prefer just taking the capsules, knowing that it's, there. I'm getting the vitamins, the nutrients. But some people have said that raw liver is less livery,
Less
and
livery.
that's the
Yeah.
hardest part, the aftertaste for me with it. But man, I keep all that stuff with anything that I harvest,
It's dope.
and whether it gets eaten straight or just put into the grind, because I know the benefits and how much nutrient dense packed that stuff is. And I always tell people this, like a mountain lion, when it kills an animal, usually the first thing it does is open it up and go straight into the
Yep.
organs. It eats the heart, the liver, all that stuff. And why? Why is that? Because they know there are other predators in the area that are bigger than them, and they might not get to finish that animal.
Mm.
A lot of times a big bear comes in and bumps them off of it. And so they know that that's the most nutrient dense things on that body. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to eat that first. Probably because it tastes the best to them, but also that's what needs to be eaten first. Because if I get bumped off and the rest of this carcass is laying
Yeah.
here, he's got something that's going to last me for another week or two and keep me going. And a lot of people, I always tell people that like they do this for a reason. Like that's Mother Nature proving to you that these things are put in place for a reason. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that ancestral wisdom is really big, and I'm gonna guess you've been able to bear witness to it more than the average person. With hunting and stuff. Like there's a real deep appreciation just for the natural way of things, the natural order of things, and nature leaves all of these clues. Like nature knows. and it just does it, and it just keeps doing it. What's like your craziest hunt or your wildest hunting story? Because I've seen some of the animals you've taken down and some of the things you've seen, man. Like what's one that really stands out?
Man, I remember one when I was a young kid. I was archery hunting, um, and it was me and a buddy of mine. He was one of my wrestling teammates. He was like 6 at the time, 7. He wasn't hunting yet. He was too young. You got to be 12 to be able to actually hunt. But he was just hiking in with me, and our dad split off, and then me and him went up a dirt road, and we're walking, and we're being real quiet, creeping, take a few steps, stop, listen, and we get to this point, and he points over to my left, and he's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "There's something looking at us." And I look over, and like 30 yards, I see a dead deer carcass, a big buck, big velvet rack sticking up, and right behind it, this bear is hunkered down, and all you can see is like ears, the top of its head, and its eyes like staring straight at us.
Oh hell no.
Like, in that, I could not tell what it was. And all of a sudden, it had enough, and it jumped up and took off. And if you guys ever heard a bear run through the woods, like it was thick wooded area, it does not go around anything. It goes through everything. And it's knocking tree like small sap and like all kinds of stuff takes off. And my heart was racing. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I walk over, and this bear had just killed, I'm guessing maybe a lion killed it and he bumped it off. I don't know. But like super fresh kill. Like the deer was still warm. And he had only eaten one of the back hams off. And so we get out of there, and we come back the next day, and we peek around there, and there's 2 bears on it this time. And we sneak up, and they see us and smell us or whatever. And same thing, just blow up, take off. And we get up to I was like, I think I know where one of them's going. Let's go up and see if we can just cut it off. And I just wanted to see what these things were doing. I think at that point, I'm probably 12 or 13 years old. And, I was still so green with my bow and arrow. And I just wanted to learn and see and like interact with these animals. And sure enough, I got to the top of this hill, and this bear just comes walking up, doesn't even know we're there. And he just walks 50 yards in front of us. And, they kind of just like lumber, and he just walks all the way up and over the ridge and disappeared. But I don't know why, that was something that always stuck in my head, like seeing how this predator had just killed. He's out there doing the exact same thing we're trying to do.
Right.
I wanted to find that big buck and get a clean arrow in it, but he beat me to it. But it was just cool to see, especially as a young kid, this big old bear. One of them was cinnamon, one was jet black, and they had just made their kill, and they're going to town eating it, and we bumped them off.
Wild.
It's kind of cool.
Checks out too, that his 12-year-old Chad Mendes saying, "Let's follow the bear and try and find it," as opposed to saying, "Let's get the fuck out of here." It checks out that you were gonna probably go and face some pretty gnarly stuff in life as well. What's your favorite style of hunting? Do you do a bit of everything?
I do a little bit of everything. I do a lot of archery hunting. I do rifle hunting. In the archery world, we'll mix it up spot and stock, where you'll try to glass up something, whether it's bedded or out feeding, and then you have to make a game plan to try to get in there. You got to play the wind. Obviously, these animals, their nose is probably their best defense, and I mean, they can smell you from miles and miles away. So you got to make sure the wind is always in your face, them in front of you, and obviously the wind switches and swirls depending on what type of crease you're in, and like a canyon or a draw. So there's a lot of heartbreak with that. You'll spend hours. Are you out of here, babe? Okay, you can come give me a kiss real quick. Yeah. Sorry, guys. 1 sec. Our daughter's leaving.
That's all good, dude.
And so you'll spend hours with a game plan and sneaking, boots off, and taking one tiny little step or crawling for hours. And you get inside 40 yards, and all of a sudden the wind switches, and they blow up, take off, and you're just like, dang it. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of challenges to that, but it's very rewarding, and is definitely one of the best feelings in the hunting world when it all comes together. But yeah, it's I'd say that's probably my favorite, mainly just for that challenge purpose. But there's just different seasons. Like every state has different laws with dates. So usually the earlier the season is typically like archery only, and you can't rifle hunt it. So it's like that's what you have to do to try to get in there and be successful. And then after that season is set, then it jumps into rifle season or something, you know? So, um, yeah, I'd say that's probably my favorite spot in stock. But I don't mind sitting tree stands. I don't mind sitting over water holes. Like I've killed big elk sitting over water holes before where they come in midday or something and it's hot September and they're in the middle of the rut and they're out chasing cows and trying to breed and they're, overheat and they come in and jump in the big pond or something and they're
Hmm.
standing 20 yards underneath you. And that's exciting as hell to me. They have no clue you're there. It's pretty cool.
That
But
is, man. That's really cool.
yeah.
Well, you've got your fingers in a lot of pies these days, as well as a new contract signed to step back to the ring, and we've got to start thinking about bringing this one into land and return you back to your girls and back to your businesses. But kind of closing this up, I'm curious, just being a business owner, being a top athlete, being a family man, trying to be a present father, husband, all of that stuff. What are some of the things that you use, whether it's just time management or mental models or anything, to just stay balanced and all that? It sounds like a lot, man. It sounds like your life is probably pretty hectic. How do you stay grounded? How do you stay human in all of the doing?
Oh man, I'll be honest, I am extremely horrible at time management. I'm the type of guy that I have a good mix of ADD and I guess mental focus to a point where I start something sucks me in. I'm just like tunnel vision on it and don't realize what the hell's going on around me. And I don't know if that's just from years of wrestling and fighting where you have to do that
Mm,
once you step in there. But yeah, there's a lot of times, my wife is what she's kind of the one that helps me stay on track with things. If I'm sucked into something and she's like, you got to be leaving in like 5 minutes. I'm like, ah. But yeah, man, I like going back to what we talked about. Life is crazy. Like right now, especially with young kids, sports, me training, running businesses, trying to be a good husband and a good father. It's just nonstop. But you just got to do it. It's just like wrestling. Like I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. and go cut another 5 pounds to step on the scale like after already cutting 15. Like, I don't want to do it. But tough luck. You got to get up and do it. So,
got to be done,
you know,
man.
you just know that there's things that are difficult. There's things that are tough in life that sometimes, most of the time, we don't want to do. But there's just no way around it. You got to get out there and get it done. So I think I kind of have that mindset with a lot of this stuff. Like
Yeah.
there are things that I'll go train and I'm completely exhausted, and it's not necessarily my favorite thing to want to come home and help with dinner or run around and do sports and stuff like that. But, I gotta remember that these times don't last and they're gonna go quick. They are going quick
Dude.
already.
Yeah.
You gotta just be present and try to understand that and soak it up as much as you can while it's that stage of life. And then fill in getting work done and trying to get all the things that need to be done mixed in there as well. So
Never
I
ends,
don't
bro.
know.
Never
It
ends.
seems to be working. Uh, there are times where I feel like I'm in over my head, but it always seems to work itself out. So I'm
Amen,
just gonna
bro.
keep on.
Yeah, I think trying to remember like these are the golden years. There's going to be an 80-year-old version of Chad rocking in a chair some time in the future, saying
I
like,
hope
man, I'd go give anything to go back to that craziness. So like trying to remember that when you're in the suck is one thing. All right, last one for you, brother. Is it possible to get a prediction? Are we going to get a Chad Money Mendez prediction for the next fight? How's it going to go?
I mean, I see myself landing a couple big shots on this guy. I could see I could see a knockout, but man, I'm honestly kind of excited to get back to my wrestling a little bit.
All right,
You know, I like
the money shot's back.
yeah, in training, it's been feeling good, man. Mixing up the wrestling and staying on top. I haven't been able to land big elbows on another human being in a really long time, and it's been feeling nice. So we'll see, man. I wouldn't mind taking this dude down and finishing it on the ground somehow. So
Let's go. I
uh,
would like to see some vintage Chad Mendes ground and pound. That would be
yeah.
dope, dude. Cool. Where can people go to keep up with you, man? What you getting up to? All your businesses? Like, where's the best place to send them?
Yeah, so I have Instagram, YouTube. For my personal, it's just Chad Mendes. Mendes is spelled with an S. And then I do, if anyone isn't interested in seeing all my adventures in the field, like I usually film, whether I'm self-filming and editing or I have a camera guy with me, filming all my hunts, all my fishing trips, a lot of daily stuff. There's some training and stuff in there, cooking, a lot of the wild game stuff that I like to cook.
Awesome.
It's my YouTube, so look me up on there. And then Fins and Feathers, and both Fins and Feathers is spelled with a Z at the end of it. Fins and Feathers, that's our hunting and fishing guide service. If anyone ever wants to come hunt with me or fish with me, more than welcome to book something with us, and I'll take you guys out and get to hunt with you or guide you myself.
Dope.
So yeah, I think that's probably the majority of it. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Chad. You are the man. Keep kicking ass, brother. We're behind you, and we're going to see you keep doing big things, dude.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. Peace out, fam. Later. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.